For 4 seasons, we've watched Vecna terrorize Hawkins with an army of monsters at his command. Season 4 revealed what seemed like the truth. Henry Creel shaped the Mind Flayer and controls every creature in the Upside Down. That's what he told 11. The Broadway play Stranger Things, The First Shadow changed everything. It revealed that the Mind Flayer existed first, possessing young Henry Creel decades before he entered the Upside Down. So who's really in control? And what happens when Vecna realizes he's been the puppet all along? The story Vecna told wasn't the whole truth. In Season 4, Episode 7, Vecna describes arriving in the Upside Down after 11 banished him in 1979. He found a massive cloud of particles and used his psychic abilities to mold them into the spider-like Mind Flayer. He called it the most extraordinary thing of all and claimed it let him transcend his human form. The narrative seems simple. Vecna created the Mind Flayer. Vecna controlled everything. The Demogorgon, Will's possession, the Starcourt flesh monster, all Vecna pulling the strings. When Dustin theorized Vecna was the Mind Flayer's 5-star general, he had it backwards. Vecna was the general. The Mind Flayer was his weapon. Here's what Vecna didn't mention. According to the First Shadow, the Mind Flayer was already a sentient entity from Dimension X. It had already made contact with humanity and chosen its vessel, a 12-year-old boy named Henry Creel, years before 11 sent him anywhere. The play shows Henry stumbling into Brenner's stolen government equipment in a Nevada cave. He's accidentally transported to Dimension X for 12 hours. When he returns, he has powers and something else came back with him. The Mind Flayer attached itself to Henry that day. Throughout the play, Henry loses time and commits violent acts while possessed. He kills animals, attacks Patty's father, and when the Mind Flayer takes full control during the Creel family dinner, Henry murders his mother and sister. These weren't Henry's choices. Young Henry was fighting the Mind Flayer's influence. He had moments where he was kind, loving, desperate to be good. When Patty told Henry she loved him, it momentarily broke the Mind Flayer's hold. Henry was the victim initially. If you're enjoying this theory, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're diving into the evidence that changes everything. So when Vecna told 11 he shaped the Mind Flayer, he was either lying or he genuinely doesn't remember. The Mind Flayer shaped him first. The Mind Flayer has been playing the long game. The Mind Flayer is a colossal, skyscraper-sized entity made of silver-black particles linked through group intelligence. It exercises supreme control over the Upside Down through a psychic link with all creatures in that dimension. According to the First Shadow, the Mind Flayer's first known contact with humanity occurred in 1943 during the USS Eldridge experiment, where it killed sailors transported to Dimension X. Its first long-term human vessel came years later when young Henry Creel was accidentally transported to Dimension X as a child. That wasn't random. The Mind Flayer needed a human vessel with psychic abilities strong enough to eventually open permanent gates between dimensions. Look at the Mind Flayer's actions across the series. Season 1, the Demogorgon targeted Hawkins' lab, trying to kill Brenner and 11 before they could stop the plans. Season 2, it possessed Will as a spy to keep gates open. Season 3, it built a physical body and hunted 11 specifically. Every action serves one purpose: invading Earth. But is that Vecna's goal or the Mind Flayer's goal? Vecna despises humanity. He wants to reshape the world, achieve balance, become God through genocide and recreation. The Mind Flayer doesn't have personal grudges. It's a parasite spreading across dimensions. It doesn't need to understand humans or hate them. It just consumes them. When Dustin mentions the Upside Down existed for thousands, maybe millions of years, he's identifying something older than any human villain could create. The Stranger Things wiki notes the relationship between Vecna and the Mind Flayer is ambiguous and complex. More importantly, Henry and the entity developed a complicated relationship via psychic connection. Henry repeatedly attempted to seize full control over the entity and the hive mind, but the entity would retaliate, forcing Henry to re-experience troubling memories. That's not a master-servant relationship. That's two forces struggling for dominance. Vecna is starting to realize he's not in control. Season 4 ends with Vecna's triumph. He killed 4 teenagers, opened 4 gates, created a massive rift allowing the Upside Down to spread into Hawkins. He nearly killed Max. He survived being burned alive. He retreated to heal and prepare. But 18 months pass before Season 5 begins. Why? Vecna has given the military time to quarantine Hawkins and establish defenses. That makes no sense if he controls an unlimited army. He could overwhelm any resistance immediately. The only explanation is he's not ready. Something is stopping him. The answer might be 11. Brenner restored her powers and refined them beyond what they were. Vecna knows she defeated him at age 8. She closed his gates. She saved Max when he was 1 kill away from tearing Hawkins apart. But there's another possibility. Vecna is hesitating because he's lost control. The first shadow establishes the Mind Flayer was influencing Henry before he ever shaped its particles. When Henry claims he shaped the Mind Flayer, he's describing the moment he thought he gained control. Gaining control and maintaining control are different things. The Mind Flayer's particles demonstrated autonomous behavior in Season 4. When Hopper, Joyce, and Murray returned to the Russian base to destroy captured Mind Flayer fragments, they discovered the particles had escaped and possessed paralyzed demogorgons. The Mind Flayer wasn't waiting for orders. It was acting independently. The hive mind works both ways. When Murray burned the possessed demogorgons, it weakened Vecna in the Upside Down. That means anything damaging the hive mind damages Vecna too. Leave a comment below telling me what you think happens when these two villains turn on each other, because the setup is already in place. What happens if the Mind Flayer decides Vecna has outlived his usefulness? The betrayal Vecna doesn't see coming. The recently released Season 5 opening revisits Will's 1983 disappearance, showing him in the Upside Down. While we don't yet see everything that happened after the Demogorgon took him, the bigger question looms. Did Vecna orchestrate Will's abduction from the start? The Duffer Brothers confirmed Season 5 will finally answer two fundamental questions. What is the Upside Down, and why was Will taken? That second question implies Will wasn't random. If Season 5 reveals Vecna was present during that abduction and deliberately chose Will as a vessel, it would confirm the targeting was intentional all along. Fan theories suggest Vecna may have sensed latent abilities in Will, which would explain why the Mind Flayer was able to possess him so completely in Season 2. But here's where it gets interesting. Will's possession by the Mind Flayer created a permanent connection between them. In the Season 4 finale, Will tells Mike that he can still sense when Vecna is near because of the psychic link from his possession. Will says, "It's strange, knowing now who it was this whole time, but I can still remember what he thinks and how he thinks. And he's not going to stop, ever. Not until he's taken everything and everyone." Except Will isn't sensing Vecna. He's sensing the Mind Flayer that possessed him. Will was never possessed by Henry Creel. He was possessed by the Mind Flayer, acting through the hive mind that Vecna supposedly controlled. If the Mind Flayer was Vecna's puppet, Will shouldn't be able to distinguish between them. The fact that Will can sense something separate suggests the Mind Flayer has its own consciousness, its own goals, and its own plans. Multiple reviews and analyses of the first Shadow interpret the play as revealing that Vecna is not the general, he is the puppet. Vecna was Henry, but Henry was the vessel. The Mind Flayer is the ancient intelligence, the puppet master with the long game. If that interpretation is correct, then Season 5 might not be building toward 11 versus Vecna. It could be building toward Vecna and 11 versus the Mind Flayer. The betrayal could happen in several ways. The Mind Flayer might strip Vecna of his control over the hive mind, leaving him powerless while it launches its full invasion. The Mind Flayer might consume Vecna entirely, using his human form and psychic abilities as fuel to create something even more powerful. Or, Vecna might realize the truth about his possession and attempt to break free, only to discover he's been a prisoner inside his own mind for decades. The most compelling possibility combines all three. Vecna attacks 11 and her friends, believing he's orchestrating the final battle. Mid-fight, the Mind Flayer reveals itself and turns on Vecna, forcing him to experience every moment of possession he thought was his own choice. Vecna realizes he never escaped the Mind Flayer's control. Every decision he made, every gate he opened, every person he killed, all of it served the Mind Flayer's purpose, not his own. That would explain why the Upside Down is frozen in 1983 at the exact moment Will was taken. Nancy discovered this detail in Season 4 when exploring the Upside Down version of her house. Everything in the Upside Down is stuck at November 6, 1983, the day 11 opened the first gate. Why would the Upside Down freeze at that specific moment unless something fundamental changed then? The answer might be that November 6, 1983, was when the Mind Flayer gained enough access to the real world to start building its true plan. Vecna thought he was using the Mind Flayer to open gates and spread his influence. The Mind Flayer was actually using Vecna to create a permanent bridge between dimensions, with Will Byers as the anchor point. The evidence has always pointed to something bigger. Vecna is powerful. He survived bullets, fire, and 11's psychic assault, but he's still human. Born in 1947, he's been alive less than 40 years. The Upside Down is described by Dustin as having existed for thousands, maybe millions of years, suggesting the Mind Flayer predates human civilization entirely. The power imbalance is obvious. Vecna needs painful memories to attack victims. He must slowly break down mental defenses. Music breaks his hold. Human connection saves his targets. Vecna has limits. The Mind Flayer controls an entire dimension. It possesses multiple people simultaneously. It creates flesh monsters from consumed biomass. It exists as physical entity and hive mind consciousness. When it possessed Billy in Season 3, the intelligence behind his voice was alien and vast. Vecna appears more dangerous only because he operates from the Upside Down, while the Mind Flayer hasn't fully crossed over. Once the barrier breaks completely, Vecna becomes irrelevant. The Mind Flayer won't need a human vessel. Fan theories suggest the final villain might not be Vecna. Some point to Will's painting showing a three-headed red dragon, speculating about Boris from D&D lore. Others focus on Max trapped in her coma. But the most consistent theory is that the Mind Flayer is the endgame. One analysis states, on screen it was suggested Vecna made the Mind Flayer. The first shadow implies the Mind Flayer already existed in Dimension X. So it begs the question, who is the real big bad? The Duffer Brothers supervised the first Shadow's creation. If the play contradicts Season 4's narrative about who created whom, that contradiction is intentional. It's setting up the reveal that Vecna has been lying to 11 and himself. Why the betrayal makes perfect narrative sense. This theory completes character arcs building since Season 1. 11's journey is about escaping abusive control and finding identity. Brenner tried to make her a weapon. The Mind Flayer tried to kill her. Vecna framed her for the Hawkins Lab massacre. Every season, 11 fights against control. Discovering an even older force behind Vecna completes that pattern while raising stakes. Will's arc is defined by his Upside Down connection. First victim in Season 1, possessed in Season 2, retained a psychic link through Seasons 3 and 4. Season 5 will answer why Will was taken specifically. If he was chosen as a vessel for the Mind Flayer's invasion, that makes him crucial to stopping it. Will goes from victim to savior. Vecna's arc follows classic tragedy. He started as a victim, a child transported to Dimension X and possessed. He became a villain through the Mind Flayer's influence and his own nihilism. His final moment could involve realizing how little control he ever had. That's not redemption, that's horror. A man who murdered his family and destroyed countless lives, discovering it was all for nothing because he was never making decisions. The Mind Flayer needs no redemption arc. It's a force of nature, an alien intelligence so fundamentally different that understanding is impossible. That makes it the perfect final villain. You can't reason with it or appeal to emotions. The only way to stop it is complete destruction. That sets up 11, Will, and possibly Vecna working together to sever the Mind Flayer's connection to the Upside Down. Vecna wouldn't join the heroes from goodness. He'd fight for survival against something about to discard him. Season 5 will reveal who was in control all along. The first Shadow's title refers to the shadow that fell over Henry's childhood and the Mind Flayer itself. Shadows aren't the thing, they're cast by something else. The series has been building toward revealing what's casting the shadow. Vecna claimed he shaped the Mind Flayer into a spider because of his Black Widow fascination, but young Henry was drawing spiders and talking about predators before going to Dimension X. Was that his natural interest, or the Mind Flayer's influence preparing him? When Henry shaped the particle cloud, was he imposing his will, or completing a design planted in his mind decades earlier? These answers determine whether Stranger Things ends with good triumphing, or with heroes realizing the evil they fought was just a symptom of something worse. If Vecna betrays the Mind Flayer, it won't be traditional betrayal. Vecna can't betray what he was always serving. It would be Vecna trying to reclaim autonomy only to discover he never had any. The Mind Flayer would betray Vecna by showing him the truth. He was useful, and now he's not. That's the darkest outcome for Vecna. Not death or defeat. The knowledge that every evil thing he did, every person he killed, Every moment he thought he was becoming godlike. All of it was just a puppet following a script. If the Mind Flayer can do that to someone as powerful as Vecna, what does that mean for everyone connected to the Upside Down? Will has a connection. Max might still be connected. 11 shared a psychic link when the Mind Flayer bit her in Season 3. How many people carry pieces of the Mind Flayer's influence unknowingly? Season 5 has to answer these questions. The Duffer Brothers promised it will explain fundamental mysteries. The Vecna-Mind Flayer relationship is one of the biggest. Either Vecna was always in control and the Mind Flayer is just his weapon, or Vecna was never in control, and everything we believed about the villain hierarchy is wrong. The evidence supports the second option. The first shadow was created with the Duffer Brothers' involvement. They wouldn't contradict their own show unless the contradiction was the point. Vecna told 11 his version of events. The play showed what really happened. And what really happened is the Mind Flayer has been pulling strings since 1947. When Vecna and the Mind Flayer finally turn on each other in Season 5, it won't be a twist. It will be the inevitable conclusion of a power struggle happening since Henry was 12 years old. The only question is whether Vecna realizes the truth in time to do anything, or whether he dies still believing he was in control. The most disturbing possibility? Vecna already knows. He's known for years, and he's been trying to break free the entire time, using his plan to reshape humanity as a way to cut himself off from the Mind Flayer. If that's true, every evil thing Vecna did wasn't about becoming God. It was about escaping something worse. Something watching humanity from another dimension for millions of years, waiting for someone powerful enough to open the door. Vecna opened the door, now the Mind Flayer is coming through. And the person who thought he was the ultimate villain is about to discover he was just the bait. If you found this deep dive into the darkest corners of Stranger Things terrifying, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment with your theories about Season 5. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.